Welcome to the podcast, Ramp Up to Your Retirement with your host, Dan Reese. Dan, good to be with you again. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to see you again, Bill.
It's good to see you too. For those who are maybe new to this podcast, this is your second episode. The first one, we spent some time getting to know you, a little bit more about Dan personally. Today, we're going to get to know Dan professionally. So, why don't we just jump right in and get started with the story of your firm, of your practice? How old is it, and how long has it been there?
Yeah, we've been around about 20 years and started. I originally was a State Farm agent, and that's why I kind of got introduced to a little bit around of the financial planning area, specifically around
Mm.
insurance. Although at that time they were making a little bit of a push into some mutual funds and some other basic retirement planning. But really kind of realized quickly that I wanted to be able to do more, and I wanted more things available for clients to be able to really work for them versus working for a company. So we
Yeah.
opened up Avery Wealth back around 2004, right in that area, 2003, 2004, and yeah, we've been at it ever since.
Wow, that's great. Now I know the name of the podcast is Ramp Up to Retirement, so the focus ought to be probably fairly obvious, but
Yeah.
remind us of exactly what the focus of the practice is.
Yeah, I mean, really, people that are 5 to 7 years away from retirement, and that includes business owners as well.
Mm.
Both people working for companies and then people that own companies, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and really put yourself in the best position. As you're entering into retirement. And retirement means so many different things to different people nowadays, right? I mean, it's not most people we deal with are still very active, and a lot of times it's just a different phase of life. They want to
Yes.
spend their time with a little more control over it versus just going to work every day or doing the same thing they've been doing for 20, 30, 40 years. But those are basically the people that we tend to be very helpful for.
Yeah, have noticed that the notion or the idea of retirement today is radically different than it was 10 years ago, even. I think a lot of people look at retirement just like you speak of, like, okay, I don't have to do that same gig day in, day out. I can do something different. So, how do you help them prepare for that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, what's really fun is just talking to people about what that different might mean to them, right?
Mm,
Like how they see it. And that's probably one of the best parts about our job is like being able to let people open up, because sometimes I feel like people restrict themselves from really thinking, openly that way of what life could be. There's kind of this fear, well, I could never do that. Or I could, I wouldn't be able to. And when you start opening it up and saying, well, why not? Maybe there are some things you could do that you thought weren't possible. If you've worked hard and put yourself in a good financial position to have that freedom. And so ultimately, finding that freedom for people, what it means to them, is our initial goal with any new client.
yeah, you got any good stories about like any? I'm not asking for names or specifics, but if you got like a favorite story about a client who came in going, "I really don't want to retire, Dan, because my dad used to say retirement is death." Right? It's like I'm
Yeah.
not
Oh
going to
no.
retire. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely have heard that, and where they just feel like, okay, I'm afraid to tap into what I've saved.
Mm,
I kind of like the idea of continuing to save. But further, even more than that, I think they haven't allowed themselves to think of what that time might mean to them, like
yeah.
passions they have or family. And one of the best exercises I've seen are, where they take the number of hours in a week and like, let's map them out. So currently, how do you fill those hours? Right. And so you're like, well, we sleep, typically 8 hours, which gets a little harder as you get older, but we'll use that.
You help prepare for that part too.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a golf league this night. And you start filling in those hours, and then you say, okay, let's talk about what it might look like if you don't, fill those 8 hours where you're working today
Mm,
in that manner. What could you do, and what do you like to do? Well, we could travel some, or maybe, I would like to play a little more golf, or I would like to spend more time with the grandkids, right? And so, letting them kind of let their mind wander a little bit, you know. And a lot of times when you have the people like, I don't know about retirement because it does scare me, you know like what it should do is open your mind into possibilities, of things like, hey, I would love to do more at my church, as an example. They've always got
mhm.
all these programs, and like I just have not been able to commit to them because I just feel like I don't have the time to do that. Well, what if you
Yeah.
could? What might that mean to you?
Have you ever had a client, or you have a favorite story about a client who came in uh, really reluctantly and then suddenly got enthusiastic about the idea?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like when we start having the conversations, when they think of some of the other things they could be doing, what happens? They start realizing some of the things they might not like that much about what they are doing. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So like, well, it would be nice to not have to drive an hour to work every day, and or
Hmm.
I'm really getting tired of this, these new reports we have to do, and like, everything's just getting a little bit, more stressful at work. And that's fun to see, right? So we've had that a lot of times where they think, okay, I could never do it. And then they start thinking about the good things they could do with their time and the passions they could pursue. And some of them, we've had people that have talked about, I'd love to like teach at the community college, like,
Yeah.
like an engineer that's like always worked in an engineering firm, has, really great background in math and sciences, and some of the physics and things. And they're like, oh, I never thought of that, but that'd be really fun. Like, I'd like to share, some of my experiences and knowledge in the engineering field. Right. And so those are the types of things that really get them opening up and then realizing, hey, my life maybe could be a little bit better if I didn't have to do this 9 to 5 every single day.
Yeah, I know a guy who was a math major in his undergraduate degree, but he's an attorney in real life, and he's talked about, like, it would be kind of fun would be to just get that to the point where I hang my shingle out and I don't have to take every client that comes in. I can just take the ones I want to take and maybe teach math
Yeah.
not even teach math at the community college.
Yep. Yep. And that's a big thing too. Like, I think some of the things people are starting to realize is that it doesn't mean you fully stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies now that are like, hey, if you could work 2 days a week or 3 days a week, we'd love to keep you around. Right.
Yeah.
So it could be one of those deals where it's like, hey, we're not stepping completely away, but we're going to reduce those hours, and then maybe
Hmm.
that's kind of a phase in, right? So you phase in, working three
Yeah.
days a week, and then maybe another year later you go to two, and then you might get to a point where you're like, okay, I think I'm comfortable walking away. So it doesn't always have to be like a clean cut, like, okay, I'm done doing that.
Yeah, no, 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 and I totally understand that. I'm not comfortable with the idea of, you know, totally walking away from anything. I just, among other things, it just keeps, you stay engaged with people.
Yeah.
You just stay engaged with people.
The point is like that idea of engagement. Like, you need to find engagement. Like, the happiest people continually to have some way to be engaged, right?
Mm,
So
yeah,
that could be the passion, that could be, it could be some part-time work, whatever it might be. But you do have to find a way to fill in some hours with being around other people, right?
yeah. You sound like a guy who enjoys what he does, Dan.
Oh yeah, it's great for sure.
So, tell us a little bit more about the practice. Is it just you, or are there other advisors involved, or what does your practice look like?
Yeah, so we have another senior advisor that's a certified financial planner, Brent Oliver, in the office, and yeah, actually, we're going to have an episode here in the future, probably the next one. We'll talk
Oh,
to
great.
Brent. You learn a little bit more about him.
Excellent.
We've got an associate advisor, Abby, that works with me directly, so she helps me out with my clients.
Okay.
Amy in our office is our client service manager, which she does a great job. I will say that people like her a lot more than they like Brent and Abby and I. I'm just, well, maybe not Abby, more Brent and I, right? They love Amy, so she's wonderful and has a lot of day-to-day interaction with clients and things from a service aspect. And then of course we've got our team at Carson Wealth that really provides a lot of expertise for us, and from the investment area, legal,
Mhm.
accounting, insurance, all these different areas that are important to financial planning. And
Yeah.
so, like, I always tell people, like, you cannot be an expert in all things. Anybody that thinks they can is really, you know, maybe thinking more of themselves than what they should, because it's just
Yep.
not possible, right? And so we've always believed, it's really the key to providing a great, service and relationship with clients is to surround yourself with experts that you can tap into, when that need arises for that client, right? So that we can make sure that we're always getting really good information and direction and options for clients when they run into different financial planning needs.
Yeah, no, no, I think that that is really wise. As a matter of fact, I'm always wary of people who, quote unquote, know it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you get new clients, Dan?
Yeah, the majority of our clients come from our existing clients and then other
Hmm.
professionals that we engage with.
Okay.
A lot of times, like our model is, we're helping our clients really create full financial plans, which means, they've got a CPA or they've got an attorney that they work with, and so, we develop relationships with them to make sure that the client, we're looking at everything holistically. So we talk with them about clients. Then oftentimes they say, hey, you know what? We appreciate the holistic approach, and we have some other people
Yeah.
that we think you might be a good fit for. And so those are the two primary ways that new clients come into our firm.
Is that what you think makes you unique and different from other advisors?
I think part of it is that we really work hard at getting to know people. We want to know our clients' stories. That's the very first thing that we talk about when we meet somebody new.
Yeah.
Tell us about where you're coming from, right? We want to know who you are. And then we want to know, how is it that we can serve you? What are the things that are really, basically affecting you today? Because
Hmm.
people don't generally just pick up the phone and call like a financial planner, investment advisor, unless something is happening in their life that drives them to do that, right?
Yeah.
So like really learning about that and finding out, what's on their plate and if those are things that we can help them with, is key really because, I think anything, really being client centric, I know that gets thrown around a lot, but you can't do that or you can't be client centric unless you know them, and really what drives that person or that family.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Do you find that people respond well to that? This relationship is, as you sort of alluded to there, is a little bit different. It's that financial advisor
Hmm. Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, the thing is, and this is just my take on it, we live in a world where it's kind of turned into a little bit of a me first world, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so what happens is that we find that most people aren't really getting listened to very much, if that makes some
Mm,
sense,
does
right?
totally.
Like the person's so excited to say something themselves that maybe they're not hearing the person they're talking to. And so, that idea of truly listening and really digging in deeper to the things that they're telling you to make sure you fully understand them, I think it's refreshing to a lot of people because it's kind of unique in today's world, and let's hope we can all get back to more of that because
Mm,
that's what great relationships are built on.
well, we really, just an editorial aside here, because I think social media has warped our idea of what relationships are. Now,
Hmm.
a lot of us think, the relationships on social media constitute relationships. And it's kind of refreshing to hear somebody speak about them in, if you will, an old fashioned way. That deeper, a little more intimate sort of basis for a relationship. So with that in mind, I mean, let's walk through like what's it like? I mean, if I'm interested in just talking to you to find out if we want to have a relationship, how do I do that? Well, before we get to how to do that, what does it look like? What's that
Yeah.
first meeting like?
Yeah, I mean, we just have what we call an introductory call, and that could be on the phone, that could be on Zoom, that could be in the office, whatever's
Okay,
comfortable for
yeah,
somebody. But the idea is that's where we learn, just at a high level, who they are, what is it, learn about that person and what they're looking for, that family, and really learn a lot about what their current needs are, and just try to dig in a little bit, so we can understand them, right? Kind of their who and their why, right? What they're needing, and then we spend a little bit of time during that meeting just explaining at a high level our process, how we work
yeah.
with clients and what we do, and so they can have a good understanding that they're not going to have some, oh, you came into my office, you're going to get charged $500 or something like that, right? Like, just
Well, I'm laughing, but there are a lot of people who think I can't meet. They're going to charge me for being there.
yeah, yeah, and never. We would never do that. I mean, the thing is like our belief has always been we want to get to know you. We want to figure out if we can even provide help for you. If there's
Yeah,
a fit to be able to do that, and that takes a little bit of time, right? So like we're not putting you on the clock or anything like that, but that's what that initial kind of introductory visit is.
Hmm.
right? And then from there, if it makes sense, then we get into what we would just call like true discovery and visioning, where we
Yeah.
spend, hour and a half really getting into, what's most important to you. What really would you like things to look like?
Yeah.
And then kind of what we call like a deep dive into their information, right? Like learning more about, where they are in life on their financial journey. Like have they done
Yeah.
estate planning? Have they done, what type of insurance planning have they done? What type of investment planning have they done? Just learning just who they are and kind of where they're at.
Yeah. So is all of that, I mean, do they need to bring stuff to that first meeting, or is that more like a, bring in things to the second meeting kind of thing? And what kind of information would they need to provide you if they decide? And I do want to underscore that if they decide to have a relationship with you.
Yeah, in the first meeting, there's really not anything they need to bring. I mean, we're just going to learn
Mhm.
about them, that introductory call, and we're going to, just ask them really basic, high level questions, right? So, like that stuff that they will know. They don't need to necessarily reference. Now, if they have a specific question about something, sure, they might want to have whatever it is their questions about. It could be like, oh, I
Right.
have a question about my 401k, or I have a question about, I have this will, or I have, whatever it might be. I've got this old insurance policy, so
Yeah.
sure, bring that so we can review and answer your question appropriately. And in that second meeting, we have a process in place where we've got a, kind of a list of things that would be good to have available so that we can start to build out who they are, and again, where they are on that journey.
Hmm.
And we've got different tools we use. Some people like more online tools to help them with that. Some people just like paper. And we're open. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We want people to be able to use
Yeah.
tools that are going to be they're comfortable with, and
Right.
not force them into something they're not.
Well, that's great. So, if anybody who's listening to this podcast today is thinking, you sound like somebody they would like to reach out to, how do they get a hold of you and the folks at Avery Wealth?
Yeah, I mean, they can. A great thing to always do is visit our website, averywealth.com.
Yeah.
And the thing I always tell people is like, number one, you could fill out a contact us there if you like doing it that way. You can always call our office, 517-783-1695. All that information's on the website. But the other thing a lot of people enjoy on our website, we've got some really nice tools out there. We've got tools around like what type of risk are you comfortable with with your investments, and we have a retirement readiness quiz, where you can go through and you can start answering some of those questions and start to see where you might be on that journey to retirement, right? And
Yeah.
so, and we've got wonderful like information on our blogs about current events, like what's happening in markets and what's happening with financial planning in general. And so there's just a wealth of information out there. And so we always encourage people check that out. Very likely you're going to be able to get some good information. That might even be able to answer just an immediate question you have without even a call. But
Yeah.
we'd love to talk to you, and you can call us again. You can just fill out the contact us on the website, and we'll reach right back out and find a time that we can, connect.
And for those of you who are listening to this podcast and you're in a situation like maybe your car or you're on your commute, you couldn't write any of that information down. It's in the show notes, so you can you don't need to panic and pull off to the side of the road or anything. You can always access that, so it's easy to get to. Well, hey, we're coming to the end of this one, so let's talk about what maybe's up in the next podcast. Do you have an idea yet?
Yeah, like I say, we're gonna interview Brent Oliver in our office, and so you can learn more about him, another senior advisor. That's the thing is we definitely want everybody to know who we are, and so
Yeah.
that's really important to us. And so you can kind of learn we're real people just like you, and we're just like you know trying to make an impact on society in a positive way, by helping as many people as we can feel better about their money, right? And so, and then moving forward, we're going to be interviewing a lot of different people, what we would call, in the SMEs or subject matter experts on different things, because,
SME.
yeah, like I just love, I think, it really is a positive thing for you to hear from people that do this, like estate planning every day, or they
Oh,
do
right.
accounting every day, or they do, insurance every day, or whatever it might be, all these different areas of your good financial plan. And so, our goal again is just to help you learn. We want you to be aware, because I think the biggest challenge, Bill, that people struggle with when it comes to like investment management and financial planning is really knowing or understanding what they don't know. Because so many times people are missing out on things that could really make a substantial, positive improvement in their lives if they knew about, about those areas. And so that's really a big goal for us long term.
Well, that's great. I look forward to many more of these podcasts to come. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast for the first time today and aren't subscribers, we can fix that part really easily. All you have to do is reach out and hit follow. Boom, you're a subscriber. And the beauty of that is that every time Dan drops a new episode of his podcast, you will be notified and you can give it a listen. I would also ask that, hey, you know what? If you like this podcast, if you find it interesting, you find it useful, please tell people about it. Share it with other folks. Word of mouth is always welcome. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker. On behalf of Dan Reese and everybody at Avery Wealth, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen today. And I want to remind you that you can go out today and make today a great day or not. It's your choice. I hope you use it wisely. Until next time. Thank you for listening to Ramp Up Your Retirement. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.averywealth.com or give us a call at 517-783-1695. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Avery Wealth. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.